how do you select journal? Now, there are some questions in the chat earlier, and even now talking about how do you select journal? Do we need to aim for the top one or the ranking and all that? I think I might go with Felix because you have published in quite a lot. So we might want to ask you, like, how did you select journals? And how is it benefit you as well, like those journals that you select?
Yeah, in my case, I guess this is based on my experience, right? So when I started my first academic job, like I focused on basically publish more, and then that's why I guess for me, a learning process is basically you get better, and the more you get, the better you are, then you can actually achieve more. Like either in this case, like higher ranking journal. So most of my papers at the beginning, like so my first two publications, they are like it's not listed on ABDC obviously because I wasn't in Australia back then. And then afterwards I started, in ABDC B or A, and then I have my first A star, in 2019. That's like 2 years after my PhD, 2.5. And then afterwards I have more A stars. So I guess for me personally, I guess like as long as it's the same area that I am focusing on, which is basically my expertise in the context of marketing, consumer behavior, I try to build my ranking slowly. Essentially, I guess that's how I select the journal.
Okay, thank you so much. Learning by doing, right? Learn from mistake and then build up bit by bit. I think I have a pretty much similar approach. Of course, I'm not as good as Felix, and he's my good friends as well. Okay, I think this is quite sum up. He sum up in terms of selecting the journal very well. I might quickly just touch Catherine on, because she's publishing in two areas of the tourism and also marketing. And I might throw this question to you, Catherine, in terms of how do you select which one you want to go, like tourism or you want to do marketing?
Well, it depends on, well, there's lots of factors, that have to be factored into which journal I should choose. If if the methodology, because we understand the marketing journal is much harder, and now tourism journals are very hard as well. So, every journal has different requirements. You're going to read that. For tourism journals, and often you get a citation faster because in general, the tourism journals editors, they're very efficient and they're very proactive. They're hardworking. Just in general, I'm not saying the other thing, I'm marketing not. So my experience that the publishing tourism related journals get citations much faster. And also now these journals have become so good, the impact factor so good because they have lots of citations. And especially when you're in the early career, researchers, it's good for you to get recognized. How do you get recognized is by publishing, and how you get a quick publication. Quick publication is about what journal you select. So these are the factors. Either marketing, tourism, doesn't matter. So I'm flexible. If a methodology, rigorous or you're confident, you publish in marketing journal, it's fine. And also, but some marketing journals, they they have so much requirements and lots of criteria. You're gonna say this. It's hard. There's no one fitting in all basket. You have to keep checking and look at who the editors are, and look at the impact factor of the journal, and then look at maybe the editor's personality, and also look at the citations, look at which stage. It's not lots of factors. I do both, but in general, I always look at the journal's impact factor, the ranking, and who the editors are. Because if editors not responsive, take 6 months or 1 year to respond to you to get one paper published. Like now, JBR, Journal of Business Research, I submitted paper more than a year ago, still haven't got a response. You don't want to do that. You can't afford to lose time. So these are the factors for you to think about.
Thank you, Catherine. Now, you are my boss. I will ask you a question. Hopefully, you're not going to be upset. All right. Now, sure. This is a follow-up question. You publish in tourism and marketing. Have there been any situation at this school or any other school that is like a backfire on you that you do 2 different area and it not support what you're trying to do?
Well, for me, in my case, even publish in tourism hospitality, I make sure it's relating to marketing and management. So if you look at the journals I publish, either management or marketing, like hospitality and marketing, still marketing related. And even tourism is a management. And also I make sure these are in Q1 and or A star journals. So that's something I will never compromise on. And for you too, if you are publishing in tourism hospitality, it's fine, as long as they're highly ranked, as long as they have good impact factor, as long as you have potential generation more citations, and also depends on the institutions. Some universities, they want you to master publish in your discipline, and then go with that. But some universities, they only care about ranking, or that, then go for that. It all depends. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I think that's conclude this section. We're going to move on to the Q&As. Now, this is a second Q&A, so we're going to spend about 10-15 minutes on this Q&A. We're going to come back to the last question I mentioned. We're going to talk to the question from Sumit. So he or she is in the final years of PhD. So I have some paper, but not in the top tier journals. What would it be easier to get a teaching job or postdoc? We can talk from the Australian industry perspective. So in Australia, you still need to have a few good ranked journals in order to get a teaching position. You might be able to get a teaching contract, but not like a ongoing. It might be quite difficult to get ongoing. In terms of the postdoc in Australia, is actually not common to have a postdoc in marketing or marketing management. Normally, how postdoc work in Australia is that someone get a big grant to solve some specific problem. And then that postdoc will be there to solve that specific problem for a period of 1 to 3 years fixed term. So that is in general, that's how it's worked there. My suggestion would be to look for the market that, as in like look for the country that happy to take the the journals that you are publishing in. So we have to know the audience. Like the audience in this case is the university. If they value Q1, if they value ABDC, you do those journals and target those companies there. There is a question on the myth that the editorial normally accept the paper if it collaborate with the senior academic. What is your idea about this? Now, let me speak on this one, so it's not impact any journal. I have been a guest editor for more than 10 A-level journals, and I can ensure you that in the past, do you want a frank answer or fake answer? If the frank answer is this, there were in, because it's a 10 plus, you don't know which one. There were some specific journals, editor, that when see a big name, will be very happy to consider those paper from the big names. So yes, it will make an impact. But there will be some journal editor that don't care about who submit the paper. They care about the quality of the journal. So the answer is yes and no. If I tell you is a no, then I'm lying to you. So there are some journals that will, look at the journal more closely or look at the paper more closely if the submitting author is like quite a big name, if you want to reject a paper from that person. So yes, publish with a big name sometimes make it different. However, the reason why it's make it different is because of the brand name of that person. The journal editor might trust the brand name of that person. And if those people, the big name, continue to publish with a poor level quality journal or poor level quality paper, his or her brand name will be destroyed in the long term. So this is just a statement to the big name that like to publish with the new authors. So you need to make sure that your work is good as well, not just a sake of chucking your name in and then submit to the paper. So I have seen that quite a lot in recent years as well. And this is a message to myself to always make sure that when put a name in, the paper should be good. Now we're going to move on before there's a drama on that. Thank you so much for comment, very clear communication and open communication. Is it a good idea for students to do a systematic literature review during the PhD? Sarah, could you please Maybe not there. All right. So I will answer this one quickly. And I think I can speak on behalf of Catherine and Sarah as well, because I know that they suggest that PhD candidate to do a systematic literature review or some type of review before, during their PhD. It's actually a very good idea for literature review section to do it. In fact, all of my PhD candidate will, in one point, at one point, we have to do a systematic literature review. I myself actually associate editor specialized in systematic literature review and review paper. And every paper that you do a review style that you submit to the AMJ, it will be sent to me. So I will actually looking at every single paper there if you send to the AMJ. Please note that the rejection rate of this type of paper is more than 90%. So shall I say again, the rejection rate of the desk rejection is more than 90%. So the one that's reject is actually me. So most of the review paper is actually very hard to do because you have to come up with a very insightful, new things, systematic literature review and all that. Now in the future, I'm going to do a workshop on it, so I won't talk too long, but talk to your supervisor well, plan well on what you plan to do. You need to have some good insight there. Now I noticed there's one question about systematic literature review somewhere there. Can you publish in a high ranked journal? The answer is yes. Most of the JAMS, Journal of Academic Marketing Science, the recent impact factor is 18.2, something like that. And I think the reason why they have such a high impact factor is because they publish, I call it fashion or in-trend conceptual review paper. And they get a lot of citation in that case. Now, if you miss top journal, which likely will be the case, I apologize for that, there are not many other journals would consider the review paper. If you do a biometric type of paper, then it's not very good. You need to have some type of conceptual review or something new. It's quite difficult to publish in an A rank level. But if you not give up, Journal of Business Research, take it. International Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services will not take it. International Journal of Consumer Study will take it. Journal of Consumer Behavior also take it because they have a new associate editor in review paper. AMJ, Australian Journal of Marketing, will take it, but very hard to pass the review round. Now, answer the question from Sarah. I might ask Felix for help in this one. I'm doing my PhD by publication. What is the best way? Hang on. What is the best way to get my paper accepted and published earlier in order to graduate early?
It depends. I guess it depends on what would you like to do afterwards, because and I think back to kind of like the first point as well, like where would you like to do your work essentially? If you are going to industry versus academia, obviously in academia you need to have some publications, I think, these days, because otherwise it will be more difficult to get a job. And if you want to go to academia, where do you like to go, right? As Park mentioned, like different countries have their own standard. Like for example, Australia and New Zealand, we have ABDC. In European countries or UK, they have like they call ABS or AJG, they call it. So that's kind of like different ranking. So I think depending on that, I think that would kind of like drive what's best for you, because in the end, if you just want to graduate earlier, you don't actually need to publish, right? If you actually just need to get your PhD, you don't actually need to publish per se, unless I do understand there are a few countries which expect their PhD candidates to publish before they can actually get a PhD. So that's another obviously different case. But I think if the focus is kind of like to graduate earlier, you might not to publish. You might not to get it published, because getting a paper published might take longer. However, if you want to get you want to have a publication, and that kind of like depends on where you want to be, where you want to go, then you can kind of like strategize. And frankly, for me personally, it's really similar what Catherine mentioned, kind of like, you need to work really hard. So like literally at the beginning, the first few papers, what I'm doing, literally I do everything, and then my co-authors, they are collecting the data because I didn't have the money. It's the same essentially. You need to be willing to work really hard and be ready to work pretty much most of the papers literally, like, like, so that's just like, willingness to basically to work hard, I think. So yeah, I guess the answer to this, like, it depends. Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? Where? What is the expectation? If it's just, publish, graduate earlier, you don't need to get it published maybe sometimes, unless that's the requirement. So it really depends. But back to what Catherine said, I think the most important here is actually to work hard, depending on your aim.
Thank you, Felix. I think that sums up quite well. There is a next question that is a hidden message just to me. He or she not doing a master by thesis, but doing a master. Can you publish from a master that don't have a thesis? My frank answer now, they would be quite difficult. Now, I feel how you feel because my master did not have a real thesis component back 10 years plus ago. It's very difficult to publish that. So what you might have to do if you don't really have a thesis component in your master, you might have to do a sidetrack project first with your potential supervisor, and then you can go from there. All right. And the next question, I might ask Sarah to answer because Sarah is working with health and then agriculture and ICT and all that. So many disciplines that she's working with. So the question is, may I get your opinion as an early career researcher jumping into the cross-discipline research, try to fit my research into a PhD program. So it's a good idea to do a cross-discipline when you do a thesis and also a research. Sarah?
Thanks, Park, and thanks, Rashid, for the question. I think as an ECR, is actually quite challenging to basically try to build a research profile in a certain area, but we also need to be open to work in different other areas just to, because it's not just about publication, but it could be about research projects, funding as well. And I myself working, like Park mentioned, in different areas, like agriculture, ICT, etc. So I guess the key here is that it is okay to do to participate in like cross-disciplinary research, but try to find an angle where you could use your expertise to contribute to that research area. For instance, my research area is relationship marketing and marketing technology. So whenever I join any research projects, I always try to find an aspect where I could create value using my expertise. For example, like with working with like our ICT colleagues, then we're bringing the marketing perspective into the use of AI to like relationship between human and machine, or like how organization implement AI systems to build relationship with their customers, so that basically still when we give like we have a chance to collaborate with people from different disciplines, but at the same time we also expand and enhance our expertise in one specific areas. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think it will help with the grant as well when we do multidiscipline.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's very important. When you want to get promotion higher, then you need grants and all that. Thank you once again for the question there. Now, I'm going to finish off some of this question and move on to the next speak with the presenter. So at a very early stage of PhD, is it okay to publish in a B-rank journal instead of A? Now, myself have published some B-rank journal during my PhD in early stage of my career. The strategy that I use is like, if anyone plays stock or do some trading before, journal is like that. A lot of the journal in the future from B is will become A, or some of the journal from A might be removed, depending on the quality and all that. So what I do is I try to check and then try to look and analyze on which journal have a potential that will be upgraded from A to A star, or which one would we have a potential to upgrade from B to A. And then I submit a lot of the paper to those journals that gonna be, B to A, something like that. So yes, you should submit to B if you can, and just target those that potentially could be upgraded. Is it important to use good references when you submit to the top ranked journal? The answer is yes. Try to use good citation when you try to refer on anything. Is it important to publish only in ABDC listing although the journal is in Q1. Now, my university, University of Southern Queensland, actually do not care about ABDC listing. We care about Q1 and all those things. So yes, it is okay for you to continue to do in Q1, although it's not ranked in the ABDC. But you also have to think on in the future, next 20 years from now, which university, which country you want to move to. So we have to think, in advance on which ranking is the count.